That morning in Savannah, the sky looked bruised. Not stormed, not broken, just unsettled. A stillness in the air that felt dishonest. I stood at the kitchen counter watching Kim stir her coffee. Slow circles like she was trying to keep something buried at the bottom of the cup. "You're not part of the family plan anymore," she said, almost softly. "It's easier for Nathan." I waited. For the joke. For the hesitation. For some flicker in her voice that said this wasn't real. But it came with no weight. No edge. Just flat. Like she was noting the weather. Like I'd simply aged out of a membership I never signed up for. I didn't say anything right away. Just looked at her hands. The ones that used to reach for me in the middle of the night like she was afraid I'd disappear. She never looked up. "You're not part of the family plan anymore." That's how she said it. As if I was an item on a shared calendar being deleted to make space for something else. I remember thinking, how long had that sentence been rehearsed? Not out loud. Just quietly inside her. Like a loop on a screensaver. Something she could fall back on when she was ready to shut the whole thing down. Nathan had always made it clear I was temporary. From the first week I moved in. He was 13 then, old enough to hate me, young enough to not hide it. "You're not my real dad," he said when I asked him to take his shoes off before dragging mud through the hallway. Not shouted. Not screamed. Just stated. Like truth. Cold and common. I brushed it off back then. Chalked it up to hormones. Loyalty to his absentee father. A boy trying to guard the last scraps of his old life. I thought, if I stay steady, he'll come around. Boys test boundaries, not hearts. But I was wrong. That same year, he told Kim he wouldn't call me anything at all. Not Dad. Not Michael. Not even hey. He would speak around me like I was part of the furniture. If I asked him to do something, he'd look to Kim. If I said no, he'd wait for her to say yes. It became a game. One she never stopped him from playing. I used to drive him to school. Rain or shine, early mornings, late pickups. He never said thank you. Never said goodbye when he got out. Just slammed the door behind him like he was escaping something. Once, he left a note in the back seat. Crumpled. Probably meant for a friend. It said, "My mom's boyfriend's a joke. Thinks he's in charge." I never mentioned it. Just folded it up and kept it. Proof. Not of betrayal, but of clarity. Still, I stayed. Still, I bought him a new laptop when his grades slipped and he blamed the old one. Paid for his soccer camp when his dad didn't return Kim's calls. Sat through every school play, every awkward ceremony. Clapping loud enough for both of us. Not because I thought it would earn me love, but because I believed love was in the showing up. The being there. The consistency. But Kim's silence? It was louder than any insult Nathan ever threw. She never corrected him when he stepped out of line. Never stopped him from dismissing me. She'd just shrug after dinner. "He's a teenager." Like that word was an excuse for cruelty. Like I should be the bigger man, even in my own house. I learned to speak around the hurt. To smile through it. To convince myself that time softened resentment. But I should have known better. You can't outweigh erosion. Eventually the foundation gives. And that morning at the kitchen table, it did. "I'm not part of the family plan anymore," I repeated in my head as I walked upstairs. Packed 2 bags. One for clothes, the other for documents. By noon, I had cleaned the slate. Closed the lease. We were month to month, my name first. I made one phone call, and the landlord said, "You leaving already?" I said yes. He didn't ask why. Called the bank. Canceled the joint account. Told them to issue a check in my name and freeze hers until she verified her own. They said that would require a visit. I said, "Not my concern. Insurance, home, car, health. All under my name." I told them to remove the secondary driver. Remove the dependents. Remove anyone who wasn't me. School contact forms. I had been listed as guardian. Emergency pickup. Field trip chaperone. I logged in and wiped the data clean. No father figure here. Let Todd, the ghost, be the next to sign the clipboard. I went further than I needed to. Logged into the cloud. Deleted shared calendars. Canceled subscription services I'd opened for them: Netflix, Spotify Family, meal kits. Each click was surgical, precise, not revenge, not rage, just silence. Because if I'd argued that morning, begged, demanded explanation, what would have changed? She'd made the decision. It wasn't a conversation. It was a verdict. And I've never begged to stay where I'm unwanted. I've seen what begging becomes. A kind of humiliation that echoes in every hallway. I left the house without a word. Didn't slam the door. Didn't leave a note. Didn't touch Nathan's trophies lined on the shelf I had installed. Just locked the door behind me and slid the key under the mat. Let them come home to the same silence they gave me for years. By 3, I was sitting in a parking lot on the edge of the city, watching the slow churn of clouds. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just stared at my hands. The same ones that had patched the broken sink, rewired the living room lights, carried furniture up 3 flights of stairs when they moved in. The same hands that were never held at dinner. I thought about the word plan, family plan, as if love was a spreadsheet. What was the plan when I paid for Nathan's braces? What was the plan when I worked double shifts so Kim could go part-time after her surgery? What was the plan when I stood in line at 6 a.m. for limited-run sneakers because Nathan said he needed them to not get laughed at? I had planned plenty, budgeted, sacrificed, deferred my own needs, and all of it vanished with one sentence. Not part of the family plan. That's the kind of line you only say when you've already rewritten the script. When you've decided the man beside you is no longer essential, just convenient, just transitional. I wondered how long she'd known, how long she'd stayed quiet, collecting my labor, while filing me away under temporary. Because you don't say that kind of thing on impulse. You're not part of the family. That's not a heat-of-the-moment phrase. That's measured, practiced, softened for delivery. Maybe she had said it to her sister already. Maybe to a friend over wine. I think it's easier if he's not part of the plan anymore. Maybe Nathan had heard it before I did. Maybe I was the last to know. There's a special kind of betrayal in being erased gently. Not screamed at, not cursed, just removed like clutter. I sat in that parking lot until dusk. Cars came and went. Parents picking up kids from the dance studio next door. Laughter, music, small joys. I had none of those. Just the clarity that I had loved a family who had already voted me out. That's when I decided. I wasn't going back. Not to get closure. Not to demand thanks. Not to gather what was already mine. I was done. Not in anger. In clarity. Because once someone looks you in the eye over breakfast and tells you your presence is inconvenient, there's nothing left to save. You don't salvage from that. You sever. The house always sounded different when no one lived in it. I used to think the noise came from footsteps, doors, television sets, the small collisions of daily life. But the real noise, the real weight came from presence. From belongings. From toothbrushes lined up on the sink. From mismatched socks under the couch. From the flickering porch light you keep meaning to fix. I took all of it with me. Not just my things, though I was deliberate about that. The jackets in the hallway closet. My tools from the shed. The passport buried in the drawer. Even the extra phone charger from the kitchen drawer. I took everything that had my fingerprint on it. Everything that once proved I existed in that house. But more than that, I removed the feeling of me. I turned off the thermostat. Drained the water lines, emptied the fridge, took the batteries from the remotes, reset the Wi-Fi router, logged them out of every streaming account I'd ever paid for. I left the walls clean, the drawers hollow, the rooms vacant, not just physically but emotionally. By the time Kim and Nathan returned that evening, the house wasn't ours. It was just a shell, a space they once lived in with a man who no longer existed there. They got back around 6. I knew the exact time because I was parked 4 blocks away, watching through the windshield as the porch light flicked on. I wasn't spying. I wasn't curious. I just wanted to see the moment they stepped inside and realized what absence really looked like. Kim stood at the threshold longer than I expected. She didn't call out. She didn't rush in. She opened the door like she was walking into someone else's house. The porch light flickered again, and I watched her pause at the switch, flick it once, Twice. Like that would reset something. Nathan followed behind her. Slouched, hoodie up, headphones half on. He stopped short in the entryway, looked around, then pulled the hood back slowly. He said something. I couldn't hear what, but I saw his lips move. Then he turned toward her. The first thing he noticed, the smell. I knew he would, because homes have scents, and I had stripped this one of all of them. No more brewed coffee from my 6 a.m. routine. No more spice from my Sunday chili pot. No more warmth from fresh laundry. Just cold walls and plastic furniture. A vacuumed rug that smelled like chemicals, and a silence that swallowed their voices before they could land. They stood there for a while. Then I saw the movement. Kim pulled out her phone. The blue glow lit her face as her thumbs worked fast. The first message came before I'd even driven away. Where are you? Is this a joke? Call me. Now. I didn't respond. She called 5 times that night. I let them ring out, each one quieter than the last. I watched them come in while sitting on the edge of a motel bed, just 20 minutes outside of Savannah, in a roadside place that smelled like burned bacon and stale coffee. I picked the room farthest from the lobby. End unit. No neighbors. No noise. Just me, a cheap lamp, a ticking wall clock, and the strange comfort of clean detachment. It was the first time in years I felt peace. But peace isn't silent. Not really. It hums. It waits. It asks questions you've buried beneath years of compromise. That night, I lay on the motel bed and stared at the popcorn ceiling. My phone buzzed again. Nathan's upset. You didn't have to do this. Can we talk? Each message landed like a knock on a door I'd already locked. They weren't demands. They were confusion disguised as concern. But here's the truth. No one asked to talk when I was there. No one checked in when I was pulling double shifts, when I was paying the electric bill Nathan left running all night with his gaming rig, when I was patching drywall he punched last spring. They only started calling when I took the silence with me. Nathan didn't message until the next day. His first and only attempt at reconciliation was a half-hearted text. You didn't have to be dramatic. That was it. Not an apology. Not a question. Just a teenager's reflex, deflect and dismiss. Pretend it's overblown. Pretend the man who made your breakfast every Saturday morning for 4 years just packed up his life over nothing. I didn't respond, because I knew what he really meant. You weren't supposed to leave. You were supposed to stay, keep paying, keep giving, no matter how loudly we ignored you. And he wasn't wrong. That's what I'd done for years. Paid for groceries I didn't eat. Sat at tables where no one asked how my day was. Woke up at 5 a.m. to shovel the driveway while Nathan slept in and Kim scrolled her phone under the covers. I carried them like luggage through a life they didn't even realize was bought with sacrifice. And when the weight got too heavy, they handed me more. Nathan never wanted me as a father. He wanted me as a wallet, a driver, a man to stand beside his mother so he could still pretend they were a whole family. He never knew my father died when I was 17, that I spent 3 years floundering, trying to teach myself how to be a man without a map. I thought maybe I could give him what I never had, a presence, a roof, a hand that never disappeared. But what do you call it when a gift is treated like a burden? You call it a lesson. And I was done teaching people who refused to learn. By day 3, the calls turned into voicemails. Kim's voice was softer now, less sharp, more regretful. She said things like, "We didn't mean to push you away," and "Nathan's just a kid," and "We can talk if you want." But even in apology, she never used the words. Not "I'm sorry," not "I was wrong," not "You didn't deserve this." She danced around the truth like it might bite her. And maybe it would. Because the truth is, love without loyalty is just proximity. And respect that requires explanation is already gone. They had proximity, but never loyalty. I had given them 1,000 small things. Rides to the airport, oil changes, tire rotations, late-night runs for cough medicine. A warm coat when Nathan refused to wear one. Baked ziti on Thursdays, reminders to drink water, to turn off the lights, to lock the damn door. None of it mattered. Not when it counted. Kim said I wasn't part of the plan. Nathan never let me believe I was part of the family. So I disappeared. Not in bitterness, but with precision. I left them the house, but gutted of warmth. I left them the furniture, but stripped of meaning. I left them the memory of a man who used to live there. And now they'd have to reckon with his absence. Let them call Todd the biological father. Let them lean on the man who shows up twice a year with an envelope and excuses. Let them see what happens when the ghost becomes real and the spine of the house vanishes. The next morning, I got a message from Kim's sister. "You okay?" Kim's freaking out. "I always knew you were too good for her." I didn't respond, because that wasn't the point. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making a scene. It was about dignity. You don't stay in a house where your presence is conditional. You don't beg to be called dad by a boy who only sees you as an ATM. You don't keep pouring into a cup that leaks. You walk. You disappear. You take your silence and let it do the talking. And if they feel the absence, if the rooms echo too loud, if the light switch doesn't fix what's broken, then maybe, just maybe, they'll understand. The man they erased wasn't invisible. He was holding everything up. And now, they can hold it on their own. Nothing fancy. Just a bed, a table, and a lamp with a cracked shade. The kind of place you sleep in when you're not trying to make memories. A place between things. A layover in a life that used to be yours. The wallpaper peeled near the corners. The bathroom fan buzzed like it was choking on dust. My room smelled like old linens and whatever the last tenant was running from. Still, it was clean, quiet. It didn't ask anything of me. It didn't look at me like I had failed it. That was more than I could say for the house I left behind. There was a diner next door. One of those places where the menu hadn't changed since 1986, and the waitress calls you Han, whether you're 25 or 70. I'd walk there most mornings, sit by the window, and eat eggs I didn't have to scramble for anyone else. No requests, no sighs from across the table, no teenage silence thick as concrete. Just me, and stillness. At night, I sat with the glow of the motel TV humming against the walls. I didn't watch it, just needed the noise. Something to compete with the echoes. The phone buzzed less now. Kim had gone quiet. Nathan, too. I imagined the house with its lights still flickering, with the sink still dripping, with groceries running low because I wasn't there to fill the fridge. I imagined Kim's hands shaking over the budget, the numbers no longer lining up without my salary filling in the gaps. And Nathan, pacing the hallway, confused that doors didn't open as easily when I wasn't there holding them. That's when the papers arrived, delivered to the front desk in a thin manila envelope. My name, printed in bold. The motel manager, an old guy with a limp and no patience for questions, handed them to me without a word. I didn't have to read far. Kim had filed for housing rights, compensation, financial control of what I'd left behind. Not a divorce, not yet, but close. A claim to what she thought she was still owed. She wanted the house. My house. The one I bought before we met. The one I renovated, repaired, rewired. Every board, every screw, mine. She cited habitual contribution. Said the house had become a joint residence. That she and Nathan had formed reasonable expectation of continued support. In other words, I was supposed to keep paying for people who didn't want me there. I didn't get angry. I got ready. The hearing was set for a Tuesday morning in Clayton County. I wore the same jacket I left in. Brown corduroy, frayed cuffs. The right shoulder darkened from years of carrying too much. I brought a folder. Title documents, payment receipts, renovation permits with my name on every dotted line. Everything dated, signed, archived. I didn't hire a lawyer. I didn't need one. The facts would speak louder than any plea. The courthouse was quiet. That kind of stillness only found in waiting rooms and verdicts. Kim sat 3 rows ahead of me with her lawyer, dressed like she thought politeness could win what love hadn't. She didn't look back. The judge was a man in his 60s with a tired voice and no tolerance for theatrics. He asked questions. I answered, clear, unshaken. Who holds the deed? I do. Who's on the mortgage? Just me. Any joint ownership agreements? No. Kim's lawyer tried to play angles. Emotional dependency, domestic contribution, shared parental roles. But none of it stuck. Not when the paper trail was this clean. The judge leaned back, folded his hands, and asked Kim directly, "Do you have proof of ownership or financial contribution toward the home's purchase or equity?" She hesitated. "No," she said finally. "But he lived with us." The judge nodded. Not unkindly, just firmly. Living in a home isn't the same as owning it. That was it. That was the moment the illusion cracked. The myth of shared everything. The fantasy that just because I provided, she owned a piece of me. She didn't. Not anymore. The ruling took 10 minutes. My ownership upheld. No spousal claim. No retroactive support. No obligation to keep her or her son tied to a house they never wanted to share with me in the first place. When we stepped outside, she finally looked at me. Not with anger, with disbelief. Like she had built an entire life on the assumption that I'd never walk away. That my silence was loyalty. That my presence was permanent. But permanence is earned. Through respect. Through truth. Not through convenience. I didn't say a word. Just walked across the street to the diner. Same waitress. Same window seat. The coffee was bitter, as always, but honest. No pretense. No apology. Halfway through my meal, the phone buzzed again. "Nathan, you said you'd always be there." I stared at the screen. That line, it wasn't a plea. It was an accusation. A weapon sharpened by years of taking without thanks. He meant, you were supposed to keep carrying us. Even when we spat at your feet. I turned the phone off. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally did. For myself. I stayed in that booth for an hour. Let the coffee grow cold. Watched a mother outside hold her toddler's hand as they crossed the street. Watched a man carry 2 bags of groceries and still stop to pick up a stranger's dropped receipt. Small kindnesses. Real presence. It struck me how rare that had been in my own house. How hard I worked to prove I mattered, while they never once tried to do the same for me. They didn't see me. Not really. And now they would learn to live without the man they pretended was invisible. I went back to the motel that evening. Sat on the bed and opened my laptop. Checked my savings. Not much left, but enough. Enough for one more chapter. I started looking for a small place. Something mine. Just mine. No shared keys. No second toothbrush left beside the sink by someone who won't fight for you. Just a 1-bedroom with working heat and a door that locks behind you. Not to keep anyone out, but to remind yourself you can be whole in your own space. The motel phone rang once. I let it go. Then it rang again. This time I picked up. The manager's voice, rough like gravel. "There's a woman here. Says she knows you." I didn't ask who. I already knew. I told him to tell her I wasn't available. He grunted. "She's not coming in. Just left a note." An envelope slid under my door 10 minutes later. It wasn't from Kim. It was from Nathan. Folded notebook paper. Scrawled handwriting. "I didn't think you'd really leave. Mom says you never wanted to be my dad anyway. I know I made it hard. I thought you were just trying to replace him. But I get it now. I think. I miss the coffee. I miss the smell of bacon. I miss you yelling at me to pick up my damn socks. You weren't loud, but you were there. And now the house doesn't feel like home. It's just a place with walls. I'm sorry. Please come back." I stared at the words. Read them twice. 3 times. Then I folded the note. Slipped it into my bag. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't mean something, but because it meant too much, too late. Regret isn't the same as change. And I wasn't going back to be tested again. I was done proving myself to people who only saw my value when I vanished. The next morning I packed up. Paid the motel bill in cash. Left a tip for the maid who never knocked. Drove east. Toward the coast. Toward whatever came next. And as the city faded behind me, I realized something. This wasn't escape. It was freedom. Not a win. Not a victory lap. Just clarity. Just a clean break from a house that never held space for the man I tried to be. They'd feel the emptiness. They'd try to fill it with noise, with calls, with blame, with memories twisted to fit the version of me that made them feel better. But I was no longer theirs to define. And for the first time in years, I wasn't surviving in silence. I was choosing it. After court, I didn't go back to Savannah. There was nothing there that still belonged to me. Nothing worth circling back for. The city looked different when you have no one waiting for you. Every street just becomes a route out. I drove south for hours, passing exits I used to know by heart. The gas stations, the billboards, the back roads that once took us to weekend barbecues or Nathan's away games. All of it now just a ghost trail I had no reason to follow. I didn't miss it. Not the house. Not the routines. Not the polite conversations with neighbors who thought we were whole. I found a town off the highway. Not big, not small. Just quiet. Coastal air. Salt in the wind. Enough space to think without remembering. I rented a small apartment above a closed bookstore. 1 bedroom, 1 window, and a rusted railing out front where I could drink my coffee in peace. The landlord gave me the keys with a nod and no questions. That first night I sat on the floor, no furniture yet, and just listened. To the nothing. No footsteps above me. No slamming doors. No teenage muttering behind headphones. No sideways glances over dinner. Just the hum of a ceiling fan and the distant crash of ocean against rock. Felt like breathing for the first time in years. People say silence is lonely. It's not. Indifference is lonely. Being unseen in a house you help pay for is lonely. Silence? Silence is honest. It doesn't pretend. It doesn't take. It just exists. Like water. Like air. The messages kept coming for a while. Kim started soft. That familiar edge of manipulation disguised as concern. I didn't mean it like that. You didn't even give me a chance to explain. We were figuring things out. Figuring things out. That's what she called erasing me from a plan she never admitted I was part of. I deleted the texts. Blocked the number. Nathan took longer. His messages weren't as frequent. But when they came, they dug deep. You left. Mom's falling apart. I didn't ask you to be my dad. That last one? That one hit like a nail through bone. I didn't ask you to be my dad. No, he didn't. He didn't ask for the winter jacket I bought when the cold crept into his bones. He didn't ask for the job recommendation I pulled strings to get him. He didn't ask for the thousands in tuition, the new tires on his car, the late-night drives to pick him up when his friends ditched him at parties. He didn't ask, but he took. They all took. And I gave not because I needed a title, but because I believed love showed itself in sacrifice. In consistency. In showing up even when the door was never opened for you. But love isn't alone. And gratitude can't be begged for. A month passed. Then another. And slowly the silence became normal. Then comfortable. Then necessary. I built new routines. Mornings started with coffee and walks by the pier. I found work, contracting jobs, small repairs. Hands in wood, not wallets. Fixed fences, sanded decks, replaced windows. The kind of labor that lets you sleep at night not because you're tired, but because you're clean. One of my clients, an older woman named LEASE, asked once if I had a family. I hesitated. No, I said. Not anymore. She nodded like she understood. Didn't pry. Just brought me lemonade and silence. That night, I pulled out the letter Nathan left at the motel. The one with the apology. I hadn't read it since the day I folded it. My fingers hesitated at the crease. The words were still there. Still desperate. Still unsure. Still missing the one thing I had waited 16 years to hear. Respect. He said he missed me. He said the house was quiet. He said he didn't understand how bad it was until I left. But he never said, you mattered. Not once. That's the part people don't talk about. The slow starvation of being useful but not valued. Present but not invited. Needed but not respected. Eventually, your heart shrinks to fit the space they give you. And mine had been folding itself smaller for years. I tore the letter in half. Then into quarters. Dropped the pieces in the trash without ceremony. Some things don't deserve to be archived. The day the divorce papers came, I didn't flinch. Just signed them. No property to fight over. No child custody to discuss. No ceremony to undo, just paperwork. A signature. A confirmation that the man who gave everything now legally owed nothing. I mailed them back with no return address. Kim didn't respond. Not a text. Not a call. Not a second chance. She knew. Knew she'd misjudged the man who kept showing up. Knew she'd mistaken my silence for weakness. Knew that the version of me who begged to be included had finally gone extinct. Sometimes I wonder if she tells people about me now. If she says, I had a man once who paid for everything, who stayed through every insult, who left without a word, and never came back. Maybe she paints herself the victim. Maybe she blames me for leaving instead of herself for pushing. It doesn't matter, because this time I get to write the ending. And the ending is this. I left. I stopped showing up for people who didn't see me. I stopped paying for mouths that never spoke my name with kindness. I stopped pretending that patience was the same as peace. And when I left, I didn't leave empty. I left clean. There's a difference. Clean means I did what I could, that I stayed longer than I should have, that I gave until the well ran dry, that I offered a home, a heart, a future. And when none of it was enough, I didn't break. I bowed out, gracefully, without spite, without apology. I walk the coast now, sometimes early, sometimes late. The ocean doesn't care who I used to be. It just comes and goes, steady as breath. It doesn't ask who I gave to, doesn't care who left me behind. It just keeps moving, and so do I. But every now and then, I see a boy walking beside his stepfather. The awkward shuffle of trying to belong, the strained conversations, the look of a man trying to prove he matters. And I want to stop him. I want to say, make sure they see you. Don't keep pouring into a cup that leaks. Don't let "you're not my real dad" become your bedtime prayer. Don't lose yourself in the name of someone else's comfort. But I don't, because some truths have to be learned the hard way, like I did. So now I ask you, whoever's listening, whoever's wondering if they're the villain for finally saying no, was I wrong? Was I cruel for cutting off the money, the support, the name? Was I heartless for walking out instead of waiting to be shoved? Or was I just a man who finally believed what he was told? That I wasn't needed, that I didn't belong, that I wasn't a real father. Tell me, would you have stayed? Would you have kept paying? Would you have begged to remain in a house where your name was whispered like an inconvenience? Or would you have done what I did? Walked out, closed the door, and finally said, no more.